Welcome, everybody. We should both be live on screen. Mic's on now. This is Fly in Formation. It's a spin-off to my weekly mix show. I do a show called After the Smoke is Clear, or At Sick Radio, where me and my homie DJ Dice come through, and every week we tell people about as much as we can about new music in Canada. I play independent artists from across the country every week. And fuck, I gotta turn that alert box off so that follow alert doesn't go off and interrupt stream. Thanks for the follow. I normally mute those things out on the interviews, but yeah. So Fly in Formation is a spin-off from AtSick, and I just like to talk to the different artists who make all the music that I play on AtSick, because if anybody knows about the local scenes across the country, it's the artists themselves. So, so far, I think I'm coming up on 100 interviews, and it's been a lot of fun just getting to kind of dig into the scene and pick up knowledge myself and get a bunch of different artists on here dropping gems. Today, I'm joined by Ezza of Choom Gang, Niagara Falls-based artist. Welcome aboard, man. How you doing today?
Hey, wonderful. Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for playing my music on AtSick. It really means a lot. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah, man. I really enjoy the music, dude. So, you know, I like hearing a thank you for playing it, but at the same time, I'd be playing it one way or the other because I just like playing dope shit for people. So, you know, keep making dope music. I'll keep playing it. Your new album, though, Just Call Me E.
Awesome.
That's what we're here to talk about, I guess, mostly. So, you know, we'll get into a little bit more of just kind of your history and stuff and the scene and whatnot. But let's just start off talking about the new album, man. Can you kind of describe what people can expect from that?
Yeah, so it's definitely my most personal work, but I tried to make it a way that could also be like a good introduction to me as an artist as well. It's my first like full length thing that I've done in the last 2 years. And I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years sort of trying to build my audience and figuring out little internet tricks, this, that, or the other, to kind of prepare myself to drop something that might find a lot of new ears, but also might be interesting to the people that have already kind of been following and listening. So yeah, I tried to make it really true to who I am in my life, but not in a way that would kind of turn off somebody that's never heard of me before. I'd be like, who the hell's this guy to talk about his life? You know, the music has to be good too, right? So
For real, man.
tried to do it so that it could be kind of well-rounded that way.
Yeah.
And I hope that I achieved that.
Nice, man. So this is album number 6, right? You've been at this for a while.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my 6th album since 2019, so it'll be 7 years.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, like, how far back does that go? But was 2019, that was the first time you kind of got into making music, or?
I had been making music for a while before that, but 2019 is when I consider, or I guess 2018, 2019 is when I started kind of getting serious with it and deciding, like, this is something I really want to do potentially for a living one day.
Yeah.
I know it can take a long time to get to the point where you can make a living off it, but I feel like I'm ready to just do this, you know?
Nice,
that's kind of when I started being like, all right, I'm going to start making these albums. And then, yeah, I tried to do one a year, and I did one a year, 2019, 2020, so on and so forth.
Was it a coincidence that it happened to fall at the same time as the pandemic, or was it like,
yeah, I was just going to say, like, that's part of what made it kind of interesting. Like, you listen to the 5 albums and you can kind of hear the vibe changing as kind of the world and life changed for everybody around that time. So I kind of got lucky. I don't want to say lucky, you know, the pandemic, but lucky artistically in a sense that, like, people were more sitting at home listening to music, which that's what I make music for more, is like people that will listen to music as like an activity,
right,
you know, which is a lot of people, but it's not everybody. A lot of people will just listen to music when they're going out dancing or when they're driving around. And
100%, man. I like to call it headphone music. I like music, and I myself also make music in that same vein, that it's like, it's not really for a club, and it's not really for the parties or whatever. It's more just for somebody to lock in and kind of think about what's being said and fucking rock with the music with some dedicated attention span, you know?
Absolutely, man. And like, so during the pandemic, like a lot of people were really locking in and like listening and paying attention to stuff. And then lyrical stuff sort of, kind of started to pop off a little more. And I was like, okay, let's roll with this because, you know, lyricism is originally like what I started doing when I first started writing. I was like 12 or 13.
Okay.
And over the years, I got into trying to make a club banger, trying to make a SoundCloud hit,
Right.
trying to make a YouTube hit that would just like go viral. And that's kind of why I don't take anything I did before 2018 seriously, because it was really just me trying to find my voice in all these different ways, right?
Fair enough,
So it
man.
just so happened that during the time I decided, like, okay, I'm going to really take this art form seriously and do it as an art form, that the world changed and people started actually listening and taking it kind of more seriously as an art form. So then the albums kind of followed that sort of arc at the same time. They got more and more like lyrical and introspective as they went on.
I've heard people talk about like trying to make the hit for TikTok that'll go viral, or trying to make, something that'll blow up on YouTube, give it a nice music video, flashy visuals for it. Or even, Spotify hits. I've heard people talk about their strategy to do well on Spotify. What's the strategy that you were after to do well on SoundCloud? I've never really heard people talk about that. Is it just freestyling? I feel like Lil B and SoundCloud rap
Yeah,
kind of just like
there was a SoundCloud.
okay.
Yeah, like that's it, man. Like it was kind of based freestyling, like I don't want to say low effort because more effort does go into that music than people realize,
Sure.
and there is more quality there than people realize. Like it's not all garbage, like, and that's why I liked it. It
Yeah.
did actually appeal to me, and even as somebody that came up listening to like real hip hop, I loved all that wacky shit. Like I love Lil Yachty and like all them
Well,
when they came out, and there was sort of this big old school versus new school fundamental battle over hip hop, where now it's like it's all kind of merged and everybody's kind of cool with each other, which is awesome.
real.
But at the time, I was like, I'm not fucking with old heads that are like against all the new young shit. Like, I want
Right.
to hear how this thing evolves, how young people perceive it, and then make it their own, right? And a lot of that shit to me was fire, right? So I got into that. And again, I was a little bit older, but I wasn't old head age, at that time. But I was still older than a lot of these kids, right? But I
Sure.
was influenced by them. So I'm making their style of music. My hair is long, I got grills in, and I'm being wacky and shit. And again, I did some of it was good. It wasn't all bad, but it wasn't really me being true to myself and who I want to be. There was an element of that to it, but there was a layer on top of it of clearly trying to make some kind of hit, something that goes on SoundCloud/YouTube.
Yeah.
Because before Spotify really took off, like that was it.
For real, man. Yeah, I fuck with that type of music. I mean, as many old head tendencies as I do have, I try to keep an open mind to the new music or whatever, because nobody wants to be that old hater or whatever, right? So, yeah, I think there's a lot of authenticity that came from that movement, though, right?
Absolutely, and just new styles.
Yeah, for real, dude. So on this newest album of yours, Just Call Me E, can you talk about the producers? Where'd you find the beats for this album?
Yeah, so like I really fancy myself a good curator of beat selections when it comes to putting together a project. Like that's almost as much of my art form as rapping is. That's
Right.
why I love to like make albums and make projects, because it's just so much fun to collect a collection of beats. And it's great to do a project with all one producer, but to me, like one of the things in hip hop that makes a really cool like solo album is that rapper picking beats from different producers. And like I think like Nas Illmatic was one of the first big records to really do that.
Yeah.
Before that, it was like Eric B and Rakim, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious. Like it was always the DJ and the producer and the rapper were always together. And then Illmatic was like, here's one rapper rapping over DJ Premier, over Q-Tip, like all the best at the time, Large Professor. So it's like that to me was the first like solo rap album, and everything kind of borrowed from that formula after that. So when I make a solo album, that's kind of what I try to do, is pick different beats from different producers. So I have my go-tos both locally and sort of on the internet, but like I use BeatStars and I lease beats.
Yeah.
I would say on this album it's about 50-50, like beats that I get from local producers, my friends, and beats that I find on the internet and pay the leasing fee and just use and hope for the best, you know. But
Dude, I posted a clip recently where I was talking to somebody else and they brought up leasing beats, and I was surprised how much like hate it got from all these other artists popping into the comment sections just being like, I would never lease a beat, I never have and I never will. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I hate it that much. Like, it comes down to what the person's intention is, and like putting together a project that has cohesion is still possible with multiple producers, as long as, like you said, somebody's at the wheel to make sure that it feels like a project rather than a collection of singles or whatever, right? And I think you did that on this album. But in fact, though, dude, like when I listened to it yesterday, before I looked at the credits for it, I assumed that it was all produced by one person, because a lot of it has the same kind of drop across it. There's that they've been messing with us for 2,000 years. It's time we start messing back or whatever.
yeah.
Is that Arsenal the Beat Chef, or whose drop
That's
is that?
just
I've
me.
heard
Like
that.
I just put that. I decided one day that it would be cool. I decided it would be cool if a rapper had a tag, because
Okay.
producers have tags and DJs have tags. So I'm like, I want to have a rapper tag, and I started dropping that like on the odd track here and there, and people kept commenting on the tag. They're like, "Yo, that 2,000 years. I don't know what it is about it, but that goes hard, you know." So I just started dropping it on everything. Like basically everything I do has that on it somewhere.
Nice, man. Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of a good cheat code to make people think that it is all produced by the same guy, maybe, or whatever. Like, you know, if
It
people
helps
don't know
with
any better.
cohesion, right?
Yeah, for real. So on this album, man, there's a lot of like storytelling tracks, or at least a few storytelling tracks. I wanted to ask, like, is that something that's kind of new territory to you, or have you always kind of gravitated towards like telling a narrative throughout a song?
That's a great question. Yeah, I definitely decided to get more into it with this album for sure. Like, yeah, there's definitely more storytelling on here than on anything I've ever done.
Okay.
I've fucked around with making storytelling tracks before, but never anything that like I would still put out today, you know.
Sure.
So when I decided to like, I'm gonna really like test my pen game. To be honest, like I know this is a Canadian podcast, but Kendrick Lamar really inspired me last year with like just the pen game
Yeah.
stuff, right? Like just perfect your pen game, right? That's what this art form is. Like, yeah, it's about being an entertainer and making hits and like making great songs and stuff, but it's also about like really writing, you know. It's a writing and performing thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to test myself, test my limits of like what I could write, you know. And songs off of like the one song off of GNX, the Tupac one, Reincarnated,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
How
Yeah.
many different layers of storytelling, how many different layers of storytelling can you fit into one song, you know, like 3-4 minutes, whatever it is. You could write a book that doesn't have the depth that that song has, you know.
For sure.
So, and hate, you know, hate it or love it, it is what it is. But that's the kind of stuff that inspired me for this album, was like, all right, let's get crazy with storytelling.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to like tell my real life story at the same time, you know. So I'm like, how can I tell my story but also make interesting songs that each tell their own story?
Yeah, man. I mean, listening to the album, like, you did a good job of making each different song actually be about something, yeah, or kind of stand on its own as well as part of the project. Sometimes I'll listen to an album and like not come up with questions about specific songs, but listening to your album, I came up with questions about specific songs, because I think they each kind of have a topic, or if not a topic, then it's like, this is the posse cut or whatever, and they each kind of stand as their own thing a little bit more than some albums might, topically. One thing that I did notice, and you mentioned Kendrick, and feel free to mention Americans. I mean, I only play Canadians on ATSIC, and I only talk to Canadians on Fly in Formation.
Just that one, that one American,
yeah,
that one in particular, I know is a sensitive topic for a lot of Canadians, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. More so for you guys out near Toronto than I think the rest of the country. It was weird watching everybody be like, "Oh, Canada's finished," and I was like, I don't think that a lot of these rappers I talk to give a flying fuck about that guy's trajectory.
Even here,
yeah.
No, even here we don't really give a flying fuck. But I don't know. There's a lot of people that I still think, whether they have some connection or degrees of separation from Drake, feel like that was like a knock for Canadian hip hop, because a lot of people have invested their own career into his career, right? And I don't blame anybody for doing that. Like, he's incredibly talented and even more successful, you know, if that's possible. And so like people who've kind of plugged into him, I don't blame them for feeling the way they do, you know? So that's why I'm like, it is what it is. But like Kendrick's the one that really inspires me, man.
Well, and from an outsider perspective, like for American audiences, I can understand that, you know, Drake's the biggest guy. He's going to represent the entire country to them because like they don't know other cities in Canada, let alone other rappers in Canada for the most part. But dude, one thing I actually wrote down was there was on the title track for your album, Just Call Me E, you left a bar out, which is something that I have written here. Reminded me of Kendrick in one of those diss tracks. He left a few bars out to let people guess. And now I don't want to get too specific asking this question, because if there's nothing more to be said about it, then so be it, and we can just go on to the next question. But was that something Kendrick inspired you to do? Let's take it that way.
Well, I think that when Kendrick does that, it reminds me of old Eminem. Like, it reminds me of the Marshall Mathers LP, leaving certain bars out on the album. I think there was a couple songs where bars were left out on the album. And Kendrick, to me, carries on a lot of traditions from that era, that sort of early 2000s, Shady Records, G-Unit. He kind of, in a way, is an alumni of that because he's a Dre signee. Sure. I think he carries a lot of those sort of formula for making an album. He takes that kind of into his work a lot. And to me, when he did something like that, for example, like the Meet the Grams diss track being all letters was Stan inspired. Like, it even has it in the liner notes that it's an interpolation of Eminem's Stan, you know? So it's like, this is where his head is at when he's trying to work his pen game. He's listening to the Marshall Mathers LP, you know? And on albums like that, you'd have certain things blanked out on the album, like old D12 albums and shit. They would have certain bars blanked out. It was like, they got too shocking there.
I hadn't made that connection, man, but yeah, that's totally true. Like, I was a old school Eminem fan too, and now that you mention it, there were bars that he would leave off, and it'd be like, what could he have possibly said that, you know, he hasn't said on these other tracks? Yeah,
you know, I think back then it was a lot of like Columbine references, you know, and like the late 90s, early 2000s, like, hey, kids from Columbine and stand them all in line. Like, regardless, though, like, I feel like Kendrick kind of is inspired by that type of stuff, you know? So he's like, you know what? Even on the official song, you're not going to know what I said, right? So that, for sure, 100%, you know, I follow that lineage of inspiration, I'll say.
Nice, man. I'm glad I caught that and asked that.
Good catch.
Yeah, dude. So I talked to Sazy a couple weeks back, and we talked a little bit about the posse cut from your album here, In My Prime 2. I wanted to ask, where was In My Prime 1? Because you start, your opening bar is like, I don't give a fuck if you don't know part 1. I just load art up like a blow dart gun, I think. Right? Yeah.
So part 1 was late last year, like late 2024.
Okay.
Me and Jack Shit did the song, and we did a video for it. So it was like the last visual that I did before putting out this album. So I didn't put the first In My Prime on the album because I kind of felt like we did what we did with it.
So it was just a single standalone project?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
standalone single. Well, last year I did a few little, I wouldn't even call them EPs. I just called them the fifth leather, and they were little kind of packs of songs that I was working on.
Right.
And I was originally going to work all that into the album, and it was going to be like 20 something songs. And then I was looking at it and I'm like, you know what? There's certain songs that I didn't put out that are the best songs, and I'm just going to leave it at that and not include all these other songs. And
Yeah.
it was going to be kind of a streaming hack I did too. And I'm like, I'm not doing a fucking streaming hack. I'm just going to put out the best album. And you know, it's way more palatable for people to listen to 10 songs than 20 something songs, especially from an artist they're not really familiar with which even people who know me are not going to be more familiar with my music than with, you know, some artists they love. So
Right.
even then they're more likely to just listen to 10 songs than 20 something. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave all these off. So In My Prime 1 was originally somewhere on the track list, but when I trimmed all the songs off that had already been put out, that one didn't make the cut, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave In My Prime 2 on its own.
I think
Yeah.
that's
And
smart,
then
man. Doing I think that's smart, doing like smaller projects or smaller albums and packaging them like that. I talked to Dialect Sosa, another guy on In My Prime Part 2, about his newest album, and it's like, I don't know, 20 some tracks or something. And it's a lot, you know. That's a lot to eat in one sitting. And I don't know. I don't know if that's the most effective way, but I also told him that I know that artists who put out singles, a lot of singles in a year, or a lot of smaller projects in a year, I end up playing them more often on After the Smoke is Clear, because like if a 20-track album comes out, like my focus is on playing new music. So I might play a track off of it the first week, a track off of it the second week, track off of it the third or fourth week. But then I'm kind of moving on to the new stuff, because there's fucking 8 hours worth of new music for me to listen to and pick from every week, right? So I think modern era, it's maybe smart to not go with a great big album like that. I think you made the right choice on that, dude. I did want to ask though, sorry, let me finish my rant here. Sazy told me that on In My Prime 2, he didn't even know who else was going to be on the track when he sent you a verse or whatever. And it kind of got me thinking, like, so I've heard bars from you, Sazy, and Dialect Sosa where all three of you claim to be the best in the city, right? So I feel like there's friendly competition there, and it's dope that you guys can still get together on a posse cut. But I wanted to know, like, did the other guys know who was going to be on it, or was everybody blindfolded going into that track?
Nobody knew a thing but me, man. Like I really risked pissing them off if I don't know if they for all I know they might not even like each other. As far as I know, they all like each other. Publicly they all like each other, so I'm like, I have no reason. I'm friends with them all, and I've never heard any of them say anything bad about the other one, so we should be all good. And luckily we were all good. But I like to surprise people, and the way I did it, even I didn't hear anybody else's verse when I wrote mine. Like I did it so that nobody heard anybody's shit. All I had was the hook with the beat with my hooks on it, like a 16 in between. I had already written and recorded my verse, but I didn't include it when I sent it to them. So everybody just got the hook with the beat and just got to take an open 16 on that. And nobody asked any questions at all. It was perfect. It worked out perfect. Nobody asked a single question. Everybody just sent me back a verse. I was like, this is beautiful. So like it was fair, but obviously there's the friendly competition element. But like, dude, there's 4 different styles on that. And that's what I find so awesome about it. Like you could say anybody's verse is your favorite verse and I wouldn't disagree with you, you know? Like literally all 4 of us smash it in our own style. Like honestly, Sazy's verse is probably my favorite verse. But any verse could be anyone's favorite verse. It doesn't matter, you know, like, and that's what I found so cool about it, is that we're not all coming in the same style. So even if we were trying to compete with each other, Honestly, it's all going to come down to preference and subjective, and that's what I think makes a great posse cut, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
And that's
definitely.
what has made great rap groups in the past. Any member of that group could be your favorite member on a given song, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I tried to make the posse cut. I think if the four of us all got together and made the song, it would have been just as dope. But I just wanted to do it in a way where it was like, okay, let's just see what everyone does, having no knowledge of what the final song is going to sound like.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fun because then nobody's trying to like one up each other or like come back and be like, oh no, let me change my bars or whatever. Let me send
we'll
you
get
the
a
verse back, right?
Cannabis and LL Cool J situation where somebody's borrowing
Yeah.
a mic off somebody's arm and then that person disses them back on the same song. Yeah, no, fuck all that. We did it in a good way, and but like I said, even if we all got together and did it, it still would have been fire, you know.
Right, man. So another thing Sazy told me, and I posted the clip earlier today. I think you saw it there, but he was talking about that he got you to mix and master his album. I wanted to ask about, and this one you mixed and mastered yourself, according to the credits. I wanted to ask about like how much experience do you have in that? Did you go to school for that, or is that just something you've picked up along the way?
Yeah, so I always did it on my own from like when I was really young and just having like Cool Edit Pro on my parents' computer and like a Radio Shack mic, like the
Yeah.
classic story. I went to school for radio and TV broadcasting. So I did pick up quite a few tips on the radio side from learning how to mix audio and stuff, and
Right.
just specifically vocals. You know, it's radio, so it's 100% vocals focused. So even though they're not teaching you vocals for music, you're still learning a lot of tips on just how to clean up your vocals, right?
Yeah.
So from there, I kind of took that and brought it to my like homemade situation, and I've just always recorded and mixed my own music, you know. I had a buddy, my best friend, who's like the reason why I rap. He passed away. He used to do it as well, and he went to school for it. But even then, a lot of the time I would be at home and I would just record and mix myself just to not have to bug him to record at his place anyway, you know.
Right.
And then after he passed away, I took over doing it for all my friends. And that's when I started mixing for other people. Before that, I only ever did it for myself in my bedroom kind of thing. Um, so then I started mixing for other people. And then that's, you know, 10 years ago now, almost 11 years ago now. So I would say I have that much experience in being just self taught in mixing where I really tried to take it and do it properly. Um, but you know, I don't consider myself like properly trained. It's all just ear, you know, it's
Yeah.
all based on ear and tips and tricks I've picked up and stuff that people tell me, you know, when they hear my music or music that I've mixed. Somebody that I know who I trust, their opinion might be like, yo, on this song, the highs sounded a little bit tinny when you raise the volume or whatever. Like I've just picked so much stuff up along the way. I'm super confident in mixing and mastering my own music so that it's the sound that I want.
And it doesn't make you hate your own music. Sazy was saying that he doesn't like mixing and mastering his own stuff because he listens to it too many times or whatever, and it makes him hate it.
Yeah, yeah. I used to go through that. Like, I totally get what he's saying. You know, I've just gotten to the point now where most of the feedback I get is good, and that kind of validates me. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to like be like I don't give a fuck what people think, but it's like obviously I do give a fuck what people think. I'm an artist, and you have to both give a fuck and not give a fuck when you're an artist, right? So
Right.
it's like at the same time I have to drown out people that are like, well, you should really pay for like professional mastering, and then your sound, you know, you might get more appeal, and it's like, man, my music is made at home. And I mix it and master it to sound like it's made at home, you know, like it's supposed to be an authentic experience that I'm kind of creating.
Right.
If I were to like record my music, right now I record my music in the baby playroom, ideally when the baby's not around. Sometimes I'll have to punch in a couple bars when the baby is around, and you can hear them in the background on certain songs.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like if I am rapping about my real life and recording within my real environment, why would I want it to sound like it was made in a fancy studio with Dr. Dre and Timbaland? You know, like
Sure.
I get the appeal to be like, when you're putting out a final product, you want it to have a certain like sound to it. But with me, like I've found kind of the sound that I'm happy with. And now when I mix for other people, they come to me to mix for them, and I'm like, well, here's what to expect. Like, here's my music. It's going to basically, mixing wise, sound like that. Obviously, you're going to have a totally different style of beat and totally different vocals, and I'm going to treat it differently than I would treat my own. But it's not going to sound like studio quality professional Dr. Dre mixing. It's going to sound like really good homemade mixing, underground mixing, like
For sure.
low budget studio DIY, that type of shit. The fucking, I want it to sound like the old. I don't use a closet and a pantyhose anymore, but like it's got to sound like music that was made in a closet with the pantyhose, but really good, you
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
it's like it's got that authenticness, but it's also got, damn, these guys who are like making music on their own are really doing it good, you know. Like it sounds good, you know.
That's
That's what
maybe
I'm
a little bit of the
going for.
SoundCloud feel to it then. That kind of like made at home feel to it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Like in the sense that like rap, if you're a rapper or a hip hop artist, like rapper or producer, you know, DJ, whatever, that's kind of the new garage band, right? It's like that's what musicians who kind of live at home,
Yeah.
that's kind of the genre that they fuck with. Like either they're making beats that are hip hop or fucking rapping, right? So like my music is staying true to that because that's the situation I've been in the entire time I've made music.
Yeah.
If I was making money, I'd probably handle it a little differently. I might pay somebody to mix and master it properly, but I also would be rapping about different shit. So while I'm rapping about being a dad, living at home, being broke, being a struggling artist, and you know, surviving and finding my kind of spirituality to keep me sane through it all, I'm not gonna have some super polished ass music, you know? Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. It's not
Definitely, man.
the authenticity is gone at that point, right? So again, someone like Sazy comes to me to mix that project, he knows what he's gonna get. He's gonna get that underground sound. And that's what they were going for on that project. So it happened to sync up and it happened to work. They're all super happy with what I did. For me, I'm like, I'm insecure now because this is the biggest, potentially the biggest thing I've ever worked on. Like what it's going to be numbers wise and stuff compared to my own music. It's going to get way more people listening, way more ears on it. So I'm like kind of worried, but everyone that's heard it is happy with it. So I'm like, okay, obviously there's some appeal to my sound. I can claim possession over it because to me it's like what I've developed over the last 10 years, which is just like, yeah, a really cool sounding bedroom underground DIY sound, you
Well, and I
know,
think that
and
goes
hopefully
back
it goes
to,
well for them.
yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about with like headphone music or music for kind of underground listeners versus music for the club or whatever too, right? Like people know what to expect and they aren't expecting it to necessarily sound like a big thunderous club banger or whatever that the 50 Cent into club or whatever. Not
Yeah.
everything has to be that if that's not necessarily the target audience, right? Um Dude, I wanted to ask about and you mentioned your friend that passed. I assume Chuck 90s. Is that the
Yeah,
guy?
yeah.
Yeah, right. So, can I ask you? Like, I saw in your bio, it said that he and you started Choom Gang. It was kind of his brainchild. Can I ask you just to tell us more about Choom Gang and how Choom Gang came around and what Choom Gang looks like now?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so we used to go by Home Records. It stood for Home of Music Expression. We still kind of do. Um, but Chuck moved out to Vancouver at one point. That's where he went to school. He went to the Art Institute of Vancouver to learn recording, mixing, mastering, all that stuff. He ended up teaching me a lot of what I know too, so that helped a lot. So yeah, he went out there and he met a bunch of other people that were like-minded and wanted to do music, and he signed them to, not there was no signing. It was just, yo, you want to be a part of Home Records, To the outside world, it looked like, no, now they're signing artists from Vancouver or whatever. But
Right.
it's just we're bringing in people that we're meeting and stuff like that, right? So it ended up being like, okay, we got some people out west, we got some people out east. This Home Records thing is kind of a vibe, right? And we start collabing with each other and appearing on each other's stuff. This is like 2010, 2011, like way back, right? He ends up moving back home, and around that time, the music kind of got a little bit different, and it got more like sort of, it became a more focused sound, I'll say. Like we really, during the time that he kind of came back home, we really found the sound that I'm like kind of trying to recultivate now. Um, and that's kind of when we started going by Choom Gang, and he thought it was cool that I think it was inspired by like Wiz Khalifa. His record label was called Rostrum Records, but they went by Taylor Gang, and like
Right.
Taylor Gang was what everybody knew, but like Rostrum Records was the official thing. So he wanted like Home Records, it's Choom Gang. Where he got it from was Barack Obama. There was a book called Dreams from My Father he wrote, and he talked about in that book when he used to live in Hawaii, he had this study group, and they basically used to just smoke mad reefer and study, and they called it Pakalolo, and they called it chooming, and they were called the Choom Gang. So Chuck thought it was fucking hilarious that the president was in something called Choom Gang, and he's like, let's just run with Choom Gang, right? Let's just be like Weed Gang, right? But like it comes from Obama. He's like, it's too good not to use. Somebody's got to use it.
Yeah, I like that, man. Yeah, that's dope.
Started just putting Choom Gang on everything and calling out Choom Gang on songs, and people loved it. When we started going on stage as Choom Gang, that was after Chuck passed, because
Oh shit, connection's hurting. Did I lose you? We're froze.
and so we're like,
Sorry, I
we're
might
gonna
need to
start
get you to say
performing
that
as
again.
Choom Gang.
Eve, can I get you to say that again? We lost you. You froze at the, like, when we started going on stage as Choom Gang.
Oh yeah, no problem. We started going on stage as Choom Gang after he passed because people recognized that name.
Okay, yeah.
Chuck 90s was kind of like the biggest name out of all of us. So after he passed, like we didn't have a draw of any sort other than being his homies.
Right.
And without kind of like using that, we just decided as a group we'll perform together and just call ourselves Choom Gang and sort of carry on his thing that way.
Dope, man. So who
Then
else
when
is
I
in Choom
decided to
Gang now?
start, so Choom Gang now is like me and his little cousins basically, and
Yeah.
and a couple of our friends from back in that same era, 2010, 2011. The guys that we did a lot of music with on the West don't really make music like that anymore. But Freelance Flint is one of those guys.
Okay.
He was like money hungry slash Choom Gang Home Records. Because he got really close with Chuck when he was out there, and made music together, started appearing on like his albums and stuff, and we kind of been affiliated ever since that way. So like Freelance Flint is like basically Choom Gang. But if you're listening to the Choom Gang album, it's like me, Joe Rell, uh, who's Chuck's little cousin, who also has some of his own music too, Toyo, who's his little brother, who's also Chuck's little cousin, and then Young Next, who's you'll hear on my music and stuff.
Yeah.
He went to the same school as me, and that's where we met. And I kind of brought him in, and we've been doing shit together since then. And then Daryl Miller appears a couple times. He has a bunch of his own music as well. And then let me think, Teely, who was kind of one of the original members. We brought him back out just this last year that we kind of did a bunch of shows as Choom Gang. So that was kind of the crew that we ran with, and it went well.
Nice, man.
We did an album and we did like a Niagra tour last year, 2024. And there's like a documentary that we had our homie Chester, shout out to Chester, was with us the entire time and filmed like everything. And he's he cut it into a like almost 2 hour documentary, and we're gonna drop that on April 20th,
Nice.
just on our YouTube. Yeah, so you'll get to learn a little bit more about Choom Gang there as well.
Dope. All right, man. You answered kind of a question that I had. I was going to ask you about Hockey Socks, and which features Freelance Flint, and how you guys linked up. I've been a fan of his music for the past few years here. Play him all the time on At Sick as well. But I think you guys
He's a man.
sonically go well together or whatever. So yeah, it just seems like a
Yeah,
long
man.
ways apart. But it makes sense if one of your homies moved out there, and that's how the connection was made. That's a cool story, man.
Dude, we
Um,
have a whole project together unreleased, like in the vault, that just like it got made again in those early COVID days. We just sent a bunch of like unfinished songs back and forth to each other. And it was like, whatever you want to finish, finish. And so somewhere in a folder, all these files are sitting that, is a Ezza and Freelance Flint duo project. But maybe it'll see the light of day one day. Who knows?
I'm a big advocate for artists to just put out all the music, man. I know that some people and
Yeah.
some critics and some fans like to sit back and be like, "Oh, Nas shouldn't have put this album out." But like personally, I am glad that I have heard every single Nas album that he's ever put out. I want to hear everything that my favorite rappers ever rap. Like, drop that shit. Don't let people fucking judge you on, oh, this is a bad song, so the rest of your catalog's whack. Like, fuck that, man. That's a small-minded mentality. So I hope that one day we see that Freelance Flint and as a album come out, man. That would be dope. My guess on why you were called the Choom Gang tied back to mushrooms more so than to weed smoking. But
That's what most people think.
yeah, right. I was like, this must be shroom slang that I am not particularly familiar with. But and then on Life and Death in St. Catharines, you tell some stories and talk about shrooms a little bit, and doing them in the past or whatever. I wanted to ask, like, do you have you ever made music on shrooms? Do you enjoy writing on shrooms? I find it can really influence the poetry, get a little bit more poetic. We're stalling out. I don't know what's wrong with our connection. There, now you're back.
I kind of got bits. I got bits and pieces of that question.
Okay. Do you ever write
Make
on
music
shrooms?
on shrooms?
Yeah. That was what I was asking. Does it affect
Yeah,
the poetry?
yeah. I would say more that having been through a period of my life where I did a lot of shrooms permanently affected my writing and poetry forever.
That checks out.
It's
Yeah.
more like that. Yeah, and like I said, I kind of mentioned that period where we became Choom Gang, like when he came home from Vancouver.
Right.
That's when we were really heavy into shrooms, and that's where our music sort of took that psychedelic approach. And but it wasn't so much while tripping; it was like having these experiences tripping, and then after coming down and coming back to the real world, smoking some weed and writing. Yeah, and like I haven't actually done shrooms in like years, but it still is a huge part of what I do. Like it's crazy. It
I can
honestly
relate to
like
that, man. A
is.
little ego death goes a long ways, right?
Yeah, man. It's like I don't necessarily. I don't want to sound like one of those guys. Like I don't have to do them anymore. Like nobody's perfect. Like obviously, I could use a lot more ego death and a lot more cleaning up.
Right.
It's not that I couldn't use them anymore, but it's like in a way, uh, it did what it needed to do for me at the time, to the point that it's carried me now, where like I still feel the effects of sort of the guidance of that experience. And
100%.
that's why I do include it in the music a lot, because it's part of my creativity even now that I
Yeah, man.
haven't done them in a long time. Like it's wild.
So I guess on a more somber note, there's a lot of talk about like friends you've lost on this album.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're well, and there's also talk about kind of just dealing with grief and kind of keeping it moving through tough times or whatever on the album that I heard. Even the opening line of the album is talking about like your son's in a box. I assume premature type situation or whatever. Yeah, he was living in a box. I was living in a blunt. I think you say something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Do you have, I guess, any? Because I think a lot of people have lost people recently, whether it's to COVID or fentanyl or violence or whatever else. It seems like all these things are on the rise, and a lot of people are passing too soon.
Yeah.
Got any sage advice for people who are dealing with grief?
Yeah, like again, that's a big part of, like you said, it's a big part of this album is just like trying to find how I'm going to deal with it, and
Yeah,
the fact that we don't have a way of dealing with trauma that's easily accessible to anyone, like
yeah,
you can you can get help, but it's only going to go so far. And I do encourage, obviously, anybody that needs help to get help strongly. I continue to get help myself, but trauma is not something that we are equipped to deal with as people and as a society, like in the slightest. It's not accessible, it's not there for you. And I feel like art is it. Art is the accessible route to trying to process your trauma. Whether you're consuming art, you watch a movie or you play a video game where the storylines really resonate with you somehow. You
yeah,
haven't ever lived that life, but it resonates and you feel it still, what art does. That's the magic of art, whether it's music or a painting, a sculpture, or a movie or a video game. And to me, like, you know, if you can make art, then you're lucky, because you have a way of actually processing your specific trauma to where it is actually your story that's going into the art. You know, you're not just relating to somebody else's, you have the chance to make it yourself. And that when making this album, I was like questioning, why do I make music?
yeah.
Like I haven't had any success with this. I've been doing it, like I said, seriously since 2019, but I've been writing rap since I was 12, and I've never made a penny, like I'm so far in the list, and I always have been. And so when I think about why I still do it, it's not for financial reasons. It's
Yeah.
not for fame because I don't have that. It's not for attention. I get a little bit of that. It's like this is how I need to process shit. So I tried to be really honest with myself and with whoever's listening on this album to be like, why do I do this? And I kind of also, before I start with that kid in a box line,
Yeah.
it's a way to say it, but it's my kid, so I'll say it. Before I start with that kid in a box line, I'm like, they ask me why I still do this shit. I say, don't act new. It's like, look at life, man. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I and other artists, what other recourse do we have other than to try to just be true to ourselves in some way and try to express ourselves in some way?
Yeah.
So for anybody dealing with grief or dealing with trauma, if you're not blessed enough to be able to make some kind of art or have some kind of creative outlet, then don't feel any shame in consuming art and having that be your comfort. Even if it's like a shitty garbage trash TV show, if it gets you through it, then that can be art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I feel like kind of the value is of music and hip hop, especially, is rooted in people overcoming trauma and people overcoming oppression.
Yeah, man.
And I don't go through, a pinky finger of what some people have gone through that have made hip hop before me. So for me to just come out and not be true to that, I think would be like a kind of an insult to the art form at this point,
Yeah.
you know.
That
So
all checks
kind
out,
of really
man.
just tried to use
Uh,
the art form to help with the trauma, whatever your art form is.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists are leaning on the pen as a bit of a crutch, therapy wise, or to deal with trauma and as a chance to get a little bit introspective. And I've myself I've been an advocate for that. I taught hip hop for 2 years and like taught people kind of
Oh, nice.
songwriting coaching and how to record themselves and that type of thing. And that was something that I kind of like put on the applications to get the program approved in the first place, was just like the power of hip hop through storytelling. And because it's such a lyrically based art form, it really gets people thinking about like, okay, what am I trying to express here? How can I say this in a way to get it out to the world and have people understand, or give people something to think about, or even just analyze their own thoughts? I think it's super powerful that way, man. And I hear that in your music too.
Damn, I really appreciate that, because yeah, that's really what I was trying to do with this one, is just stay true to that power of this art form, you know.
Word, man. So on alternate ending, oh no, wait, you just answered this. I was going to ask you, you kind of talk about letting your dream die. And I ask a lot of artists, like, what does success as an artist look like to you? And you kind of just talked about it, but want to elaborate on that at all? What would make you feel successful with this?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, you know, money would be nice, man. Like,
Sure.
that's kind of the only thing I'm missing. Like, I feel like I'm in a really good position where I can make the stuff I want to make, and I kind of am in a position to start growing a pretty good audience. It's not where it needs to be yet, but I've got a beautiful family. You know what I mean? We're figuring out the housing situation in our own way. Everybody's struggling with that, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't have a whole lot to complain about in my life, other than I would just love to be able to do my music for a living in some way, shape, or form, you know,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
that's eventually having a fan base of like 1,000 fans that will each pay, you know, however many dollars a year, to where I'm making a salary of a normal job. Fuck, that would be incredible, you know.
Yep.
Like, Dave Chappelle said that, you know, him and his dad used to argue, and his dad was a janitor, and his dad said, you'll never make any money as a comedian or whatever. And he said, if I can at least make as much money as a janitor doing what I want to do, then that's success to me, you know. So that's how I feel now. Like, when
Yeah.
I was younger, it used to be like, oh, to be a successful rapper, you got to be like famous and be a club and everybody looks at you and all this shit. Now it's just like, man, if I can live my life the way I want to live, and just like not have to work and just do my creative shit and make music, that's success to me at this point, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I know that doesn't come easy and it doesn't come quick. And if it does, it's a lot of luck, you know? So I just got to keep doing what I'm doing and wait for that kind of luck to hit, you know? But that's what success is to me, is just sort of not having to do anything else as a job except what I do creatively, you know.
Sounds like the dream
You get
for
that.
sure, man. I think grants play a big part in that, in the Canadian economy and music scene
They're
or
so
whatever.
tough, man. They're so tough to get. Like,
Yeah.
the it seems like the prerequisite requirements are a little steep, you know.
Yeah. The bigger your resume, the better. That's for sure.
The less you need the grant, the more likely you are to get it.
100%, man. Yeah, it seems that way a lot of the time. Okay, I got a couple questions that I just ask people because I think they're funny and interesting. When's the last time that you wrote a bad verse?
A bad verse. Um, God, a couple. What was it, a year or two ago? I'd say maybe even 3 years ago now. I went through a little stage where I was doing TikTok open verse challenges
Okay.
to try to like just see what it did. Obviously, everyone's encouraging you from all directions to try TikTok, and I'm just like, I can't. Like, I'll try to do open verses though, and just like, at least I'll be able to express my talent that way.
Yeah.
So I tried to do a challenge where I did one a day for 2 weeks, and at first the verses were really good, but they started they started getting pretty lazy toward the end of that, and I would say that's when I was like, all right, this isn't worth it. Like, this isn't worth putting out bad verses for everybody to see, just to like maybe catch on to a trend and go viral, you know. Like, it really actually kind of helped me make the decision to like stick to art and just hope that works.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good answer, man. How
Yeah.
about do you get more fulfillment from being on stage or from making the music in studio?
I really love that, because like, man, I really love both. I love both, and I don't get on stage nearly as often as I would like to.
Right.
because like that's a whole other world, right? Like especially in hip hop, you're dealing with so much when it comes to live shows. But that being said, like it is super duper. It's a different kind of euphoria being on stage for sure.
Yeah.
But I would say like if I had to give up one, it would be the stage. Like I would just keep making music and give up performing. Um, but I do say it's a bigger high doing the performing.
Sure, man. How about social media? How do you feel about social media? A lot of artists kind of hate on it or do it reluctantly or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of I feel that for sure. Like at this point, again, gotta shout out Kendrick. Like he really inspired me by just drop the music and you don't gotta say anything else.
Yeah.
Here's a fucking picture and a song, and that's all you're gonna get from me. I'm not gonna say a word. I'm not gonna do any funny social media games. I'm not gonna fucking write any cute little captions. Here's a picture. Here's a song. And I was like, you know what? That's what the fuck I want to do. I'm not. I'm Kendrick can get away with it because he's already famous. I got to do a
Right.
little more than that, right? I
Yeah.
got to do a little more promotion than that. I love doing stuff like this, luckily, because I did broadcasting and I did radio stuff. And I had my own podcast before, so I do enjoy this as like an art form almost, a conversational art form.
Right.
So this is something I enjoy. So I'll do a podcast, no problem. But social media posts and trying to follow trends and like this trend is happening, so try doing this as a video. Like, nah, man, I can't do any of that shit.
I can relate to that, man.
I'll post my music on there and I'll post clips from a podcast. But if it's not like artistic to me, then I don't have any joy from doing it. And if I don't have joy from doing it, why am I doing it?
I felt very much the same way with like, seeing all these suggestions of like, oh, if you're going to put a song out, make sure you have 4 different posts to show it before the song comes out or this or that. And just, they want artists to be constantly posting something on social media. So I was like, okay, what could I do that would like support the scene and I guess get myself out there a little bit more? But like, mostly it's about supporting the scene, honestly. Like you said, there's no fucking gains from any of this shit. It's just what I like doing or whatever, what we like doing, making art.
Absolutely, man.
Having conversations with artists is what I like to do. Most of my best friends are artists, right? And talking about art and having these kind of like behind the scenes conversations about like, what's the best practice? Like, what should we all be doing? What are people actually doing out there, as compared to like all these recommendations we see? Like, what's actually working for people? So this was the best thing I could think of to how do I get a bunch of little clips? And like, dude, in the last 30 days, Instagram told me I've posted 108 different fucking clips in 30 days somehow. So like, there's all sorts of content and we get to make it pretty much painlessly just having conversations in long form like this, right?
100%, bro. I couldn't agree more. I feel the exact same way. It's like, let's just get content out of what we're gonna love to do anyway, so it's doable, right? You just have to be creative, and it's another kind of creative challenge that comes with it. Is like, how do you put yourself out there in a way that's not selling yourself out,
Right. Totally, man. So speaking of putting ourselves out there, I've been putting people a little bit on the hot seat. It's a federal election right now in Canada. The states are going nuts below us. I think people need to talk about politics. So I've been asking people questions like this one. Do you think hip hop leans to either side of the political spectrum, or does politics have a place in music to you?
That's a great question, man. I'd say overall hip hop is a leftist art form. Like,
yeah,
that's where it's rooted in, like it or not. Whether it still is, there's examples both ways for sure.
Yeah.
But what sounds more out of place? Tom McDonald making a song about the state of America, or Kendrick Lamar making a song about the state of America?
Right.
What is hip hop to you? Which one is hip hop? So
the one without me, Ben Shapiro and fucking Roseanne featured on it.
Like, which one to you is hip hop? Fucking Mos Def and like Immortal Technique and dudes like that, or fucking There's not even that many examples the other way, but they're out there. And
Sure.
I think a lot of people are just confused as to what's left and what's right anymore, you know? I think people assume that because the left has been advocates of a lot of forms of censorship over the last few years, that that would be anti-hip hop in some way, because hip hop is all about freedom of expression and saying whatever words you want to say and this, that, or the other. So like
Sure.
I do get that element of it. Um, but where has there been a clash? You know, like we've gotten some of the best hip hop music ever in the last 10 years that all the woke stuff has been happening and all the censorship has been happening.
Right.
Has hip hop really suffered? Not in my opinion, you know? So it's like, you know, you could say that it's a right wing thing in the sense that it's freedom of speech. But left wing used to be more about freedom of speech anyway, you know,
Right.
like it's all about who's trying to censor who. When the
Well,
religious right is when religious people are in power, they're trying to censor everybody,
there you
right?
go. Yeah, freedom of speech only goes so far too, right? Like it goes up till hate speech is what it's supposed to do, right? And so there are certain things you're not really supposed to be saying there.
You know,
Yeah.
and then
I,
and then again, like for Trump to be elected based on a lot of based on the freedom of speech thing, and then within a day be like, you're not allowed to say that you're not a man or a woman. It's
yeah.
like, okay, how is that freedom of speech? You're not allowed to say even that you're not a man or a woman. You can't say I don't fit into either of these. The president saying you're not allowed to say that. The
Yeah.
freedom of speech president. Come on, man. It's
Wow.
just who gives a fuck? It's an identity thing. If you
Yeah.
don't want to identify as a man or a woman, what does it matter, right? So for somebody that is elected based on freedom of speech, within the first day to be like, you can't say this, and nobody sees that as like a contradiction.
100%. And now he's sending people away for shit that they've said on social media or whatever. He's sending them off to fucking El Salvador to a concentration camp because they said they don't support Israel or whatever. They do support Palestine. I guess that's enough. If you're a new immigrant, that'll get you fucking shipped off.
It's so fucked up. Like him and everybody who supported him all are becoming everything that they hated. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
man.
Like again, I was a huge Joe Rogan fan. I can't even listen to him anymore because he's exactly the shill that he claimed the other side was saying that he was. Now he is that, you know, it's like
Yeah.
you're a caricature of yourself now. Like
Dude,
fuck, bro.
I was doing blue collar work listening to Joe Rogan on work sites when he was doing like double digit podcast episodes. Like I remember
Yeah.
listening to him on fucking SoundCloud back in like I don't know,
You
2010
know?
or whatever, right? Before there even were podcast platforms that were made for that shit. Like yeah, and I listened to him a ton, and he used to say all sorts of progressive shit. Like
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen a montage of him saying all this progressive shit that he now has flip flopped on, and I
Up
honestly,
until pretty recently, man, and it's all because they attacked him personally.
I think it's because they gave him $100 million and he decided he didn't want to pay taxes anymore, dude. That was,
That's a big part of it as well. Yeah,
I think
and
that
then
was the flip.
once you get into that Texas money crowd, you become conservative real fast.
Fuck yes. Yeah, dude. How about the federal election? You got anything to say about that coming up here?
I mean, I've always been an NDP guy, and people will say just that's a waste of a vote, whatever, whatever. That's just like when I just look at the policies laid out and forget about who's in charge of what and who's the face of what.
Yeah.
That's the party that I align with morally and philosophically. So that's who I always vote for.
Yeah.
You know, Jagmeet Singh has done some clownish things in the past few years, but he's also done a lot of great things, in my opinion. And I met him, and he was cool, and I fuck with that.
You know what
but,
won me
you know,
over to be a fan of Jugmeat was I saw a Nardwar interview where Nardwar gave him a Dead Prez album and he freaked out and was like, "Yo, this is dope as fuck. I love Dead Prez." And
Right?
I was like, "Okay, that guy seems like he's on the level." And so I agree with you, man. I've always voted NDP, full transparency. Today, I walked down the street to the Liberal office and I picked up a Liberal sign because it's anything but conservative, and I gotta vote strategically to do that, and that's the only one that has a chance here in Lethbridge. So
Yeah.
I got the red sign up in my window right now, but yeah,
Luckily, St. Catherine's, where I am, has a strong NDP backing, and a lot of Niagara does. So,
nice,
my vote does good here. So I stick with it. But
beautiful.
when you're talking about the two that actually have a chance at winning the prime minister, fuck, man, the Liberals really pulled a genius move pulling Trudeau when they did and being like, let's wait a few months.
Yeah,
Let's get this super chill guy who like doesn't seem to like really push any buttons one way or the other. We'll put him in charge for now and let you just watch Trump tear shit up and
I
let you
think
just,
the real
you know?
smart move there with Carney was that he's been endorsed by conservatives before. So I feel like
Yeah.
right now the entire conservative side of the spectrum has got to be looking at this like, yeah, I don't want to be known as one of these like real far right, the right
Yeah.
wing nut job crowd or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So there's got to be some of them looking to jump ship to something more centrist, and Carney might be it or whatever. I hope so, but
He's
that's
that
mostly
middle of the road guy for sure. Like he's just the safe dude. Everyone wants the safe choice right now, man. With
yeah,
that fucking lunatic down there, bro.
right.
Everybody just wants the safe choice up here. Even the conservatives, they don't want to be a fucking 51st state, Like it goes against all the shit they were preaching in the Freedom Convoy, Canada this, Canada that.
Yeah,
Now this guy who you don't admit that it's all about, that you really love, Donald Trump, he's in power and doing all this anti-Canada shit. And where are these people now? Where are
real
these people?
quiet. They got real quiet real
They
quick.
got
Let's
real quiet, and a lot of them are going to vote for Mark Carney.
Yeah,
You know,
I hope so, man. I hope so.
I think so. They won't say it out loud, but I think so. They want it to end.
I appreciate you talking politics with me, man. I like talking politics, but I know a lot of people hate that topic and shy away from it, especially public people who don't want to alienate an audience or whatever else.
That's where it gets tricky, right? Is like I'll talk about it in private all day, but like it's hard in public to kind of skirt that line. But like honestly, during an election, fuck it, man. Everybody's talking about it. It's
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think it's important, man. As adults in society, we should have our mind at least a little bit involved in the politics of things. It affects us all, so yeah, I think it's
100%.
important to talk about. Appreciate them. Um, One more before we get into these how important questions. Can I ask you? Do you have any predictions for what's coming up in hip hop, dude?
Oh man, I think that it's going to continue. People are going to continue to appreciate lyricism.
Yeah,
That's going to find its way into bigger spaces. Again, we saw that with the Super Bowl. It's going to continue that direction where this sort of underground headphone music is somehow going to find its way into stadiums and coliseums, and
yeah,
they're going to be doing all sorts of crazy shit with motherfuckers just rapping. I mean, Wu Tang and Run the Jewels are going on a tour together. There's
ah,
going to be a lot of crazy tours this summer where the focus is the lyricism. It's going to like so I predict with hip hop is that yeah, this sort of underground sound is going to find its way into mainstream spaces one way or another. A lot of this like boom bap shit is starting to go hard at shows, like for whatever reason that's like
it's back, man. It's back. Yeah,
so like it's finding its way into live spaces and so yeah, I think like lyricism and production on like a real hip hop level is happening, but it's also converging with the young people. They fucking love it. Like it's wild, dude. I
yeah,
was at Sunshine Records and I was looking at fucking, you know, whatever like commercial rap albums had just come out and these two little girls who looked probably 12, 13 were fucking going through the hip hop albums looking for and MF Doom and what's his face? Why am I blanking on the
Madlib,
producer?
the
Yes, MF
collabo
Doom
album.
and
Yeah,
Madlib. They're
yeah.
looking for the Mad Villain albums, and they're like, "Oh, here it is, here it is." These two little girls, like, what is going on?
That's beautiful,
So
man. Yeah, I love to see
it's
that.
so beautiful. It warmed my heart so much. I'm like, I'm here looking at fucking the new Two Chains and shit, just to be like, oh, cool. Like they made a vinyl of that, and these two little girls are out here looking for MF Doom. I'm like, we're in a good place, man. It's going in the right direction. The young people are getting it, and they're appreciating the talent that goes with the actual art form now,
For
and
real.
the sort of meme rap era is kind of dead,
I hope so, man. Kendrick got a lot of lyrics off at the Super Bowl. I think that shows that things are moving the way you're talking about. I think that's a good prediction, dude.
Yeah, man, and it was successful. It
Hell
worked.
Yeah. Okay, so a few of these how important questions, and then I'll let you off the hook here and get you out of here, dude. I appreciate your time. We're over an hour already, but
Oh, good. Of course, man. It's been fun.
Yeah. Okay. So, how important is getting your stream numbers up?
It is important, unfortunately. Like, it's just like almost just an optics thing, and that's why a lot of people are tempted to just fake it, because a lot of people, unfortunately, like casual average listeners, aren't interested in listening to something that they don't see a high number on.
Right.
So it's like me as a listener who loves underground rap. Like if a cool song comes up on my algorithm, I love it more the less views there is, But
I'm the
most
same
people
way.
aren't like that. Most people are like, oh, what's everybody listening to? What am I going to be able to bring up at a party or something that other people are going to know? You know. So it does make it seem like more of a communal thing, and that's what people are attracted to with music a lot of the time, is like being part of a fan base, being part of a community, going on the Reddit and figuring out with the other fans how to get those numbers higher to bring in more fans. That's a lot of what it is now, So like, I'm still not at the point where I feel comfortable paying for bots or streams or whatever. Like, I try to always keep it organic.
I hear more horror stories about that than success stories, honestly. People getting their music taken down. They're
really cracking down on shit now. So like, I'm glad that I've kind of stuck with my guns there and not done it.
Yeah.
Obviously, my numbers aren't where they're going to be super attractive to the casual listener, but I think that it's so much more important to have a small amount of organic streams than a huge amount of you don't know where the streams came from.
Yeah. Dude, I like that answer, and that's a really good take on that question that I haven't heard from different artists yet, but I agree completely. I'm from the school of thought that, like, it's cool to be kind of onto something new and be able to show the people a thing that nobody's really heard of or whatever. Like, if that's another reason that I do After the Smoke is Clear, is just to try to show people new shit, right? So it's a tough sell because everybody wants to be part of the, like, popular crowd and like the popular guys, but yeah, it is what it is. How important is winning industry awards? I saw you were out at the London Music Awards. Is that what that's called? Niagra. Okay.
Yeah, Niagara Music Awards. It is what it is. I mean, it is a big struggle being an artist with awards and award shows, and I think like I'm a huge Kanye fan, or at least I was.
Right.
I can't really claim that anymore.
Just like Joe Rogan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But on another level too. But huge inspiration on me. The way I put together albums and stuff like that is like the thing you said earlier about each song having its own theme and its own thing within the album. Like, that's totally Kanye inspired for me, right?
Yeah.
How did I get on Kanye? What'd you ask again?
We were talking about awards.
Awards, yeah. So someone like a Kanye really came out and showed that award, like he went nuts at award shows, and I think it's because inherently they're anti-art and they're anti-artist. You can't possibly award the best artist for anything. It doesn't make sense, right? So like even the big ones, the Oscars, the Grant, like they're all bullshit in a way, right? But at the same time, everybody cares about them. As an artist, you want to be awarded. You want credentials. You want to be able to say, hey, I've done this show, I've won this award, I've got this many streams, whatever. And you want the praise because there's, a huge ego battle going on with being an artist too. So it's like everybody wants it, but everybody pretends they kind of don't want it. And everybody knows it's bullshit. But even though they know it's bullshit, they'll still show up and do the photo ops and this, that, or the other. So like, I just try to be honest with myself. It's like, if I win something, I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to put it on my resume, and that's that. But do I really feel like it's a reflection of my value as an artist? Not really. Some of the best artists that ever lived and never won an award, So it's like, it's valuable in the sense that it can help with your resume, but don't take it as it actually means that you're the best artist, you know.
Definitely,
There's
man.
no
It can
such
help
thing.
with getting the grants. We were talking about how tough it is to get grants earlier, and
Stuff like that.
that's
Exactly.
one thing. Yeah, one step
Good for
towards
the
it for
resume.
sure. Yeah. How important is it for you that a listener understands your lyrics?
Um, yeah, I'd say it's pretty important because in my case, that's kind of where I try to stand out is in what I'm talking about in my content. Um, but then I think about it like some of my favorite songs of all time, I've learned years later that I totally had the lyrics wrong at certain parts. You know, I'll be like, that's what that's this whole time I thought he said this. So like there's a value in people being able to hear what their mind hears and just running with it.
Sure.
So like, you know, it's cool if people do mishear me as long as they still kind of like it, but I hope that when people listen, they're understanding me and that it's coming across like clearly and concisely, especially when it comes to a storytelling song. You know, like
Yeah.
"Life and Death in St. Catharines." Like it was really important to me that that had some clarity to it. So I showed it to somebody that didn't know anybody involved in the real life stories. That like wouldn't have been able to say, "Oh, is this person? Does that when that person did that?" And so totally neutral party, and to see if they still understood the story, and
Yeah.
they said it was like clear as day. So I'm like, okay, I'm good, you know.
Yeah. I
I think
think you
with
did
the
a great job
storytelling song,
with the narratives
thank you.
on both that one and the title track.
Oh, thank you, brother. That
They're
that
both
really
really
means.
captivating, man. Yeah. Good. Well
Ah,
done. Yeah.
fuck, man, thank you so much. Like, as the only thing I was like kind of insecure about is like the storytelling, man. Like, because it's really got to be clear. So on songs like that, it's super important. On
For
some
sure.
other songs, it might not be that important.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, and there's a time for abstract lyrics too. Honestly, I kind of was disappointed with how big Rap Genius has blown up to be. Like with people being able to go through and like
Yeah.
find people's interpretations for every lyric under the sun. I
It's
always
almost
enjoyed
wrong all the time.
figuring it out myself. You know?
Yeah, like you can't, you know, and I don't know if you listen to a rapper named Mock Hami.
Yeah, I have. I mean,
Yeah,
not a ton, but I know the guy. Yeah,
he famously removes his lyrics from everything. Like you cannot find his lyrics. He's like one of those super abstract rappers. Like there's
yeah,
so many rhymes happening that you would have to stop and dissect it to really know what the fuck he's saying a lot of the time. But he doesn't have his lyrics anywhere. So it's like you really just have to listen and take it as abstract rap and not try to read along with it or whatever.
yeah. I
Man, I
like
don't
that
remember
idea,
the
dude.
last time I tried to read along with a song. Like I
It's
don't
never
understand how
appealed to
people
me,
can do
man.
it.
Yeah, no, it's never appealed to me. But I'm very lyrically based, so I think there are people who listen to music and what they hear is the beat, right? Uh, and they almost don't care
Yep.
about what's being said, or it just goes in one ear and out the other, kind of thing. So
Yep.
yeah, I guess it has its place, but I'm not the target audience for Rap Genius. That's for sure.
Yeah. It depends who you're trying to get, right?
Yeah. So you had an album, or sorry, a single drop a month ago or whatever, the Posse cut. That's just plain text on a black background. So how important is album art?
I think it's very important, you know, like I love it. And I think that how you like for me, how I visual like the visuals that I include with what I'm putting out is like really thought out and definitely like something that I consider to be part of the art form. Like how you present it is part of what we do, especially in the internet age where it's like, all right, how are you going to stand out? What are you
Yeah,
going to do? Right. So when it came to the singles for this album, the first two, like the title track, was like a very blurry kind of image that is loosely based on the content. You kind of have to listen to maybe guess what it's about. And then Constellations was the next single, and that was just like I looked into the public domain for old maps of the constellations, and then I like edited it so that it was just black and white, so it kind of looked like stars, but it kind of just looks like a big mess. You can't really tell what's going on.
right.
And the next single, the Posse cut, I'm like, I'm just gonna make it like the clearest, plainest possible thing where you just see the names of the artists and the name of the song. Because for me, I'm thinking about it as a fan. if I was a fan of like the Niagara music scene, I don't know if there really are any,
There's
but if I
one
was, yeah,
over
there's
here.
one right there.
Yeah,
But if I saw that lineup of names, I'd be like, oh fuck, let's go. Like
yeah.
Ezza, Daisy, Jackson, and Sosa. Like what? They got all on one song. So that's really what I wanted to do with that, was just like, let's just make this as plain as possible and just make it about who's on the song. And hopefully they'll just click it based on that.
I can confirm that I did just click it and enjoyed the song thoroughly,
Ah,
regardless of what cover art was on there. It didn't fucking matter to me at all. So yeah,
yeah,
you definitely nailed that one.
that's one of those ones, man.
How about hey, this is a new question. I haven't asked anybody this. Most of these,
Ooh.
so I do these how important questions so that then I can post like montages of 20 different people answering the same question.
Ah,
Because none of
that's a
them
good
have
idea.
right answers, right? Like it's all
Yeah.
just opinions. So this is a new one though. How important is finding the right venue for your show?
Oh man, like huge, dude. Like there's nothing worse than showing up to a bad venue. And I'm not even like the most experienced with doing shows.
Yeah,
I do a handful here, a handful there. Like I've never consistently been a guy that's always done shows and gone to different venues. So like I'm sure there's other people that could like really speak on it, but just from my little bit of experience, man, does it ever suck not being at the right venue. Luckily we have a place here called the Warehouse in St. Catharines, and to me it's the best venue for hip hop that we have in this area. It's like the perfect size, the perfect acoustics, the perfect vibe. It's like it's great for hip hop, and because I've gone to hip hop shows there, I know how good it is.
yeah, yeah.
But there's other places where it's like, I've seen like a band play here before, and that sounded good, but like, what is rap going to sound like where they're just playing the beat over the speaker and have the microphone set up? You know what I mean? Like, the
Yeah,
place has to understand what hip hop is supposed to sound like live, because that is like the big problem. Most people that own and operate venues have no fucking clue what rap is supposed to sound like in a live setting. You know what I mean? It's just like,
100%, man. They have a sound guy who's used to doing punk rock or
yep,
whatever, right? Like rock bands, and it's a whole different ballpark when you have somebody coming in with, here's my beats, my DJ's playing them or whatever, and the bass is just thunderous, and they're still trying to
yep.
get your vocals over top of it or whatever. It's a whole different thing for sure.
You're hearing yourself way too much and shit. Like,
Yeah,
just yeah. And that's the Canadian fucking independent rap scene, unfortunately. Like that's the shit we deal with. And that's kind of what the documentary is about that we're dropping. It's not about that, but that's kind of the subtle understory of it all. It's like,
yeah,
here's a story of these guys like doing their rap thing and like, doing it independently and doing their thing. But underneath that is the story of, here's what artists got to fucking deal with. You know what I mean? Here's what, like, if you want to try to translate your music from the headphones or from wherever to the live set,
yeah.
there's a lot of fucking obstacles in the way, man. And a lot of that has to do with the venue. And within each venue, there's 100 obstacles between you and, or between your music and it sounding the way it's supposed to sound. So,
Yeah.
like, it's tough, bro. It's tough. I hate dealing with live shows. If I could just teleport to the stage and have everything be perfect, I'd have the time of my life, like I'm
For
sure
real.
some big artists do, right? Like they just go and everything's ready. But having to like try to deal with stuff that's not your wheelhouse, fuck, man.
Yeah. I'm looking
Worst.
forward to that documentary, man. You said April 20th, eh? 420 it's dropping?
Yeah, it's dropping on 420. We sort of thought that would be a cool Choom Gang thing. And
Nice.
it's like, it's all done vlog style. So it's like, yeah, it's cool. You really do feel like you're there with us.
That's another smart way to make content, right? Is like if you're out doing shows anyways, get somebody to bring a camera along and just document the process and
You
clip
know
it
how
up or
many
whatever.
clips we're going to get?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, man.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
I got a couple more of these how important questions I wanted to ask you. How
Yeah,
about
let's go for it.
how important is an artist's physical location?
I used to think it was really important, but now I don't think it's so important because obviously the internet, right? Like, when I was young, like just coming up, legendary Canadian rapper Shad K,
Yeah.
who's just like one of the best ever, period, let alone Canadian.
Yeah.
Um, when I was young, I messaged him on MySpace because I found out that he was originally from London, Ontario, and before he like moved to bigger cities to do music and stuff like that. And London, Ontario is kind of similar to Niagara in that it's like a Toronto. It's near Toronto, but it's not Toronto.
Right.
So we're similar in that way. And like, so I on MySpace, I messaged him like, "Yo, how did you like decide that it was you have the confidence to be a rapper from London, Ontario? You know what I mean? Like, rap is like a big city, a big urban art
Sure.
form."
Yeah.
And he actually messaged me back, which was like one of the coolest things ever. I was like, he took the time to like read my whole paragraph and write me back a really well thought out response. And I've taken it with me ever since. And he was just like, listen, man, there's a lot of people that listen to hip hop that don't live in the hood. You know what I mean? He's
Yep.
like, you don't have to be from one of these big urban meccas to make good hip hop and have people and have your audience. He's like, just stay true to yourself. Don't worry about trying to sound like any big city, sound that you get attracted to. Like,
Yeah.
just make music that is true to you and relates to people around you. And that's what's going to work. And you know what? I've stuck with it ever since. It hasn't made me a fucking dime, but but I like what I do. I like what I do at least.
As long as you're having fun, man, that's what counts.
Shout out to Shad, man. It was the right advice.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like great advice, actually. Yeah. Okay, last one. How about how important is planning the rollout for an album?
Oh man, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Like, obviously I am starting to understand the attitude of like, yo, just give the people the fucking music, like fuck off with the rollouts. Again, huge Kanye West fan.
Sure.
Some of the best experiences of my life as a fan of music is waiting for Kanye to drop the album, Like dude, I would become obsessed. Like when Dondo was rolling out with the live things he was doing, taking over soccer stadiums and doing those interpretive fucking performance art pieces, playing the album and not performing it. Like, man, just waiting for the next thing to happen. I was so caught up at like every time I listen to that album, it transports me back like a time capsule to fucking watching those stadium events and I found that with a lot of his music, like in 2018 when they did sort of those 7-track albums where they dropped 1 week after the next. Like
Right.
Pusha T dropped, and then Kanye dropped, and then
Him
Kids See
and
Ghost
Cudi.
dropped.
Yeah.
And they had little like outdoor listening parties for each one where they had a live stream, and like you had to find the app that it was live streaming on, and then once you found it, you're like tuned into this crazy outdoor fireplace party. And like I listened to those albums and it takes me back to the fucking rollout, you know? And that doesn't have to be the case. You know what I mean? That's not necessary at all. It's like actually totally unnecessary, and he's a fucking asshole for doing it to people. But man, it's some of the best times I ever had as a music fan. So I do feel like creating that excitement for your fans is like part of the art form of rolling out an album. I think people go a little too far with rolling out singles. Fuck, it's a single. You know what I mean? Look at like the snippet of the single, and then on Tuesday we're gonna drop the cover art for the single, and then we're gonna do this for the single. Do you or whatever, but like to me, albums having a rollout is like part of the art.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be. So I guess it's like not super important. A lot of surprise drops are fucking amazing albums, and that ends up being a moment in itself. And you get transported back to that moment when that surprise drop happened, and it's just as exciting. So like, does it matter? No. As long as the music's good, people are going to make memories around it no matter what. But I think that doing a rollout is a cool way to create more memories for your fans.
Yeah, word. Sounds good, man. So I'll let you off the hook here. I hear your voice dying on you. We'll wrap this up.
I was sick all last week, so I'm still recovering, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I appreciate you spending the time to do this entire interview, dude. Okay, before I let anybody out of here, I asked them one thing. Can you describe your local hip hop scene?
Yeah, it's getting better. I'll say that.
Sure. Yeah.
It's moving in the right direction.
yeah, we're starting to work with the right people, and we're starting to be looked at by the right people, and
Yeah,
sort of find our own identity. And again, yeah, the Drake fall off has kind of been a good thing because people aren't using that as their identity anymore
sure.
to like try to get signed to OVO or whatever. That was like a big thing around here. It was like just try to be a Toronto artist.
Right.
I think people are more interested in finding their own identity now.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's a good thing. So things are moving in the right direction.
For real, man. That's a healthy mentality for artists to have, is stand on your own. Don't look for somebody else to take you under the wing necessarily, you know.
You never know who's going to get called a pedophile at the Super Bowl.
There you go. Yeah.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Oh man. Okay, so any artists you want to give shout outs to from that local scene?
Yeah, big shout out. Obviously, Sazy, that's big bro, that's family. Like he's someone that everybody should really look out for. And he's the stuff that he's doing now that he hasn't even released yet is some of the best shit I ever heard. So
Nice.
everything that he's about to come out with, definitely look out for. My man Dialect Sosa, who just came back on the scene after like 10 years of absence. He came back like a raging storm.
Yeah.
Uh, he's got a lot of content out there to look out for. Um, my man Arsenal, the beat chef, who runs Thunderground Radio. Thunderground Radio, shout out to that platform.
Okay, so that is one of your homies then, right? Like I mentioned him earlier, guessing that was actually his tag, which it wasn't, but
yeah. Shout
okay.
out to him. He actually didn't make any beats on this project, but we have made music together before. And he puts out like a lot of instrumental work, but he also tries to get local artists hopping on his beats and shit. So he's a great platform for the community, and Thunderground Radio puts a lot of us on as well. So shout out to him running that platform.
Definitely.
But yeah, he's also an artist too, just like you. You know, like we're doing what we have to do to make this content.
Yes, sir. Everybody's pushing the same boulder up the same hill. So yeah, definitely
yeah,
shouts to him and
work
Thunderground
together, man. However we can.
Definitely, man. Any plans for shows or tours or anything else that we can tell people to look out for? There's that documentary April 20th you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely the documentary April 20th. And then I can announce here that I'm performing at that venue I mentioned, Warehouse. On May 1st, I'm doing a set there, like 15 minutes. So I'll probably do some shit off the album.
Nice.
So if anybody's interested in that's catching this in the Niagara area, come out to Warehouse May 1st. Check me out. But yeah, the documentary April 20th will kind of give you a behind the scenes taste of shows and stuff. But yeah, check out the album mainly. Just Call Me E.
Hell yeah. Up on all the streaming platforms. Do you have a Bandcamp? Are you selling it?
I do have a Bandcamp. Yeah, you can buy it there. So obviously anyone that wants to support that way, really appreciate it.
Sure.
But yeah, otherwise just stream it.
Are you doing physicals or are you doing digital only?
Yeah, I am going to get physical CDs. I have vinyl set up through Elastic Stage.
Nice.
So it's like a made to order service that does vinyls. So a couple people I know have gotten stuff off there, and it seems to be an all right result. So I'm trying it out. So you can purchase the album on vinyl. It's a great way to support me, even as just an art piece, whatever. And I'm
is that through an American company? Because I saw like an article where they were talking about how these tariffs are going to fuck up artists doing those, order on demand or whatever that's called, style of producing physical copies. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I looked into it before I decided to do it, and they're based out of London, UK. So
okay, nice.
And they advertise that they ship straight to your country, so there's no like middleman or whatever.
Beautiful.
Yeah, again, I can't necessarily vouch for the overall quality of the product. I've never tried the service before now, but it's a great way to support an artist regardless.
For sure.
Spend a bit of money, and at the very least, you get a little art piece out of it.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I'm going to do CDs as well, and those for sure I've done in the past, and I'm going to have them on me. So you can, eventually you'll be able to cop CDs as well.
Okay. Where are you most active on social media? Where can people find you?
Instagram for sure. When it comes to socials, that's the one for me at Ezza905, and then Spotify Ezza of Choom Gang. That's the most important one.
All right, bro. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you again. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, bro. This is one of the best art conversations I've had in a long time. So I really appreciate it.
So glad to hear it, man. Have a good day. That was fun. I enjoyed talking to Ezza and getting to meet him, as I enjoy talking to most of these artists and getting to meet all these different artists. If people want to come through, I do these interviews every Tuesday here on Twitch. So coming up, grab my list. Coming up here next week, I'm talking to J.O., formerly known as J.O. Mares. He's a Mississauga-based MC who is half of the group Run and Gun. I talked to him and Heavy G, who is the other half of Run and Gun. I think season 2 of Fly in Formation. I don't know, a year ago or so, but J.O. has new solo work coming out, so looking forward to talking to him next week. And then the week after that, I'm doing back-to-back interviews. I'm talking to Kripal on a Sunday, so Sunday, April 27th, I'm talking to Kripal. That'll be Sunday afternoon. I think we're doing it at 3 o'clock Mountain Time. Again, I've talked to Kripal before. He's an Edmonton-based guy. I've got roots in Edmonton, so I've been watching his career for 20 years at this point in time. But I also recently talked to his homie from Doom Squad, Trips. So a little bit of extra insight into that scene there. I'm definitely looking forward to talking to him. And then on April 29th, I talked to Hardbody Dreams. He's a Vancouver-based artist who is kind of representing for a scene that I don't see coming out of Vancouver a lot. Very lyrically based. He's on some like self-knowledge and kind of 5%er-ish talk a lot of the time, Wu-Tang style, with a lot of gems in there. But I really appreciate his music lately and have been playing it a lot on ATSIC. May 6th, I'm talking to 2 more return guests. I'm talking to Roshan and Gritfall. I've talked to each of them separately in the past, but they have an EP coming out called You Don't Get It, I believe. And I'm not sure what the date on that album is, but it should be close to when I talk to them. So I'm looking forward to talking to them about it and everything else that they've been up to since I talked to them last. May 13th, I talked to Hellenbach. He's a legendary Winnipeg MC who's been on the scene for as long as I can remember. The guy has been around. Dice said that he remembers back in the day hanging out with him out by Wetaskiwin and Hobima, which I apologize, I can't think of the new name of, so I sound bad calling it that. But he's got some history in Alberta as well. And on May 20th, I'm talking to Quake Matthews, and I'm still trying to solidify the guest for May 27th, but there will be one. I'm looking forward to talking to Quake. That'll be fun. Halifax-based artist, if you didn't know who Quake was. He's doing big things. He recently won a contest that Ice Cube put on, which is pretty fucking impressive if you ask me. He did like a verse on an Ice Cube track and ended up being the winner. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the other things that he's always working on and all the music that he's constantly putting out. But this has been fun today. I appreciate people coming through. These interviews happen Tuesdays, twitch.tv/Doobyis. And I always like reading people in chat. Appreciate people who came through today for chat. If people have questions or whatever, feel free to ask them while these things happen. I'm here for it. I'm also on Twitch a lot of weekday afternoons, putting together after the smoke is clear or working on my own music. Or sometimes I'm just gaming or fucking around, sitting here commenting on new music. I listen to like 8 or 9 hours worth of new music some weeks. Every week I listen to a bunch of new music from indie artists across Canada. So normally that happens on Fridays here on Twitch, but I call that ATSIC Radar, just kind of giving my yay or nay on whether new songs should be bought and included on ATSIC. If you want to listen to ATSIC, I encourage you to. That's, in my opinion, the best rap show in Canada. I mean, shouts to all the other DJs. I got nothing but love for y'all, but I don't think anybody is paying quite as much attention to the national scene and putting as much emphasis on playing like new drops from the national scene, and especially like Atsick is 100% Canadian content. Every episode this year, there's been 12 of them so far, and every one of them has the Boycott America logo right there on the cover of them, because that's about how I feel. You know, that's where I'm at with it. So I'm happy to go 100% Canadian hip hop. And there's a bunch of dope music to play every week. So I'm having fun doing it. I'm having fun talking to artists, and appreciate people coming through to check in. Have a good one, everybody.